Good morning, Bananamators. Tracy Strong here, friendly neighborhood animation generalist. I feel like I'm supposed to have an intro that introduces me, because that's what other people do, and that seems smart. So if you can't tell by my voice, me and my son have been passing a cold back and forth all of November, so I was complete laryngitis, could not speak. So my gesture drawing video was actually like a backup, like, okay, in case I don't have time or I get overwhelmed or whatever, I'm too sick, I can use these videos. So I've already had to use the video, my backup video. So I just, first of all, thank you for everybody who commented on my previous video. I was surprised at how much more engagement having comments made on my channel. So now I'm like, do I have to do that thing where I'm like, please comment about blah, or like, here's like a question that you could argue with me about. Because I do want this channel to grow. I'd love for it to get bigger and to be able to do more stuff with it and prioritize it more. Like pie in the sky dream, I'd love for this to be my full-time job and make videos all week long about whatever and do live streams and all sorts of stuff, but can't do that. Gotta pay the bills. But I'm on vacation now. I just left Pipeline, where I've been working for 7.5 years on a bunch of different shows. But now it is time to move out into the world. It is a volatile, new, and strange world out there in the animation industry. I gotta introduce you to Noodles, too. I'm gonna go off topic. So anyway, let's do some video stuff today. But comment down below what you want to ask Noodles about me. I guess she's known me since 9th grade. So feel free to come up with some questions to ask her about what I was like as an angsty teenager. Brilliant. But I had some wonderful comments about how people are like, oh, you know, I might actually try gestures again. And I'm like, dude, gestures, they're so fun. The thing about gestures is they don't need to look good. That's the best thing about them. They can be like, look at this little, this is a goat, by the way. Look at this little thing. It looks more like a little dog than a goat. I need a picture of a goat. And I can't speak for more than a minute. So now I can see his head's like this. And I know there's little bones in there. And it comes down like this. Boop, boop. And then oop and oop. Yeah. Yeah. And then mute. And even like in this 30 seconds it took me to draw this, I can still see there's some, like this looks a little bit more like a llama. Maybe it goes a little bit more that way, right? But it's certainly better than this one. And I chose these goats. This was from the Royal Winter Fair, I think in my first year of college. So I'd had a few weeks of formal instruction on how to do gestures, and this was the best I was doing. I know this was the best I was doing because I have a note from my teacher, told me these were the best I'd ever done. So he was really like hyping me up here. He's like, oh, look at these animals. And I'm looking at it now and I'm like, what in the lack of bones here? There's no structure here. Like, I know now that bones exist, yeah? So these should be more probably like this. I can't even tell if this is a cow or a horse. I think it's supposed to be a horse, but there's no like indication here of a pelvis. Like learning about the bones, very helpful. You got the thing under here, the rib cage, you know, the thing, and it goes back here, and we got leg. You know, there's like a big haunch on a horse here, and then into the hoof. That's much more structural. So I'm missing a lot of that stuff. This one actually, you know, you can almost see it. It needs to be a bit squared up. You can see the little feet though. Like the heels, I actually got some heels in here, starting to get that. But when you see me do gestures like this in 1 minute, or like most of the people you're seeing who are actually willing to put their drawings online like this, we've been doing this for a long time. Like I've been doing it for like 18 years. So I can shorthand a lot of the stuff that back in the day, I didn't even know existed. I didn't know there was neat, look what is happening here. Like even I can just like this, and then something probably like that maybe. Yeah, but you can see that the difference in the just not even knowing where the neck connects to the head compared to this, and probably this took me longer. It comes with time, okay? So you do a lot of these quick studies to try and get, like this one I think is kind of cute because it's telling you what it's doing, but I mean this head is like super mutant. That's fine. This is good. My teacher's like, excellent job here. This mutant-headed goat, fantastic. Is that a duck? I don't know. So as I mentioned in my last video, I did the Nicolaides method of gesture drawing in school, so it's very liney. It's very searching for things. You're looking around with your hand and trying to find things, and it did not come easily to me at all. It was very unintuitive. I didn't understand. I come from a much more structural brain, so I really enjoyed Bridgman's books. His stuff is very structural, and that my brain was better able to handle that because I could see the 3 dimensions literally. I have kind of a literal brain. So I was like, ah, yes, boxes, that makes sense. But this like searching with your feelings to find the gesture, I don't know. So we got some smushy face here. We got some kind of confused legs. Like if we were to try and figure out what's happening here, like, you know, you could put in a little rib cage here, and I guess like a pelvis back here, and then do this. But that means that this guy's falling over backwards. He has a little like saggy diaper pelvis. Is very, very low. So here again, you can see my pelvis is very, very low. This is a tiny head. So you can see my proportions are quite bad, very long, very small head. This, I think, is a jacket. The shoulders are kind of this way instead of that way. I probably should have made a new layer because I can't really take any of that off now. But this was November, so let's see, September, October, November. So this is like a few months into learning how to do gestures. So if your gestures come out looking like a melty pear with a tiny head, fantastic. You're doing wonderful. The doing is the learning. It doesn't matter what they look like at the end. And you can kind of pick out that there's a few people here, but you're certain, like, it's not this. So here we have some 1-minute gestures of 3 people, and it's giving me more clarity than this, right? Just because I can, like I said, you gain that shorthand over time as you start being able to see things quicker. You like now I can really see the angles of shoulders. It's not something I'm searching for. I look and I know all like kind of the chain of thoughts that have to go through. I get there quicker. And so this is the type of cartooning I was doing kind of early in my progression, and they're not terrible. Like you can tell what they are, but there's a lot of stuff that's missing from the gesture and a lot of stuff that could be pushed more. So just things like this arm, you know, needs to have a little bit more thought put into it. I did add a layer. Yes. So if I think about how wide his chest is, it'd be like this. Like there's not enough chest here to justify the scale of this head. Yeah. And this arm is, you know, this kind of like broken. Like I'm not thinking as simply boop, boop, you know, that kind of stuff like that. And that, it came to me slowly. I'm still working on it. Here we've got that contrapposto I heard all about. But if I bring down my neckline down here to where the feet are, and I think about where the weight is being distributed on this line, the whole lower section of her body should be this way. Can you see how that is better than that? Like it's just, that's where the balance should be. She should be, like that's where her weight is. Right? So now when we bring our line up, it's directly under the neck. This foot is coming off the ground, so it's not really holding any weight. It also doesn't make sense that it's so far forward and she's lifting it off the ground. The whole pose doesn't make any sense. That's where gesture comes in. And I didn't connect to gestures at all. In the first few years of school, they kept saying, feel the form, feel it in your own body. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. And they used to get so frustrated with me, I think, because I didn't understand the language that they were using. But for me, I needed to understand everything that they were saying literally before I could find any sort of intuitive connection to it. Like, they're like, feel it in your body. I'm like, I have chronic pain. I try not to feel my body ever. So you're going to need to tell me another way around it. So I moved into, I don't know if I have any here. As I was able to take the different types of drawing, edit from Future Me, I never finished that sentence, but I think it would have been a good one. So it says, as I was able to take the different types of drawing and build a real foundation for my understanding of the human figure, it made gesture drawing make a lot more sense. I didn't have this like natural sense of like finding the drawing. I needed a lot more of the foundational stuff like perspective and anatomy to feel comfortable finding those things. So learning the figure in a lot of different ways really informed my gestures over time. So if your gestures come out really bad at first, that's totally fine. Do the variety of types of studies, and then it'll all come together in the end. So let's say you do your gesture one day. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna do like the and we got the neck up here, la la la, and this like feeling the form stuff to get all the swooshiness or whatever. Cool. The next time you do box drawings. So I'm like, okay, this character's looking up. I like to do the cross in the front. We're looking up at the box. This torso, we're coming this way. She has like a narrow thing, and then she has a wider pelvis. So we're going to, let me see, do some of that stuff. And then, of course, you got your little leggies. Dude, we're going to do that. And we're going to put the weight on the higher hip, because I've learned that the hip that you're resting on is the higher one when you do this contrapposto thing. Not because I felt it in my body or because I'm feeling it intuitively, but because literally someone told me, oh yeah, high hip, weight hip in contrapposto. And I'm like, oh, I have a fact now that I can use to figure out what exactly I'm doing. So doing these box studies, I can see, okay, pelvis is tilted this way. And then, I mean, you could go in and you could draw a literal pelvis if you can remember how they look. Something like, beep, 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 beep. I should look at the pelvis because this ain't right. Nope. This is the difference between a cartoonist and a fine artist. Like Proko over there knows what pelvis looks like every arc. And then we know that, hang on, we should finish this. So we got our cylinder, boop, boop. And then because I'm fancy, I could do a cylinder into a box for my wrist because I'm bougie like that. I use Aldaforms, papa. Yeah, so do this kind of stuff. But then you got to do your proportion studies as well. So you start going, okay, if the character is this tall, then halfway is going to be where they're, again, so we're gonna actually measure with my hands because this is not, yeah, that's accurate. Dang, I picked, my proportions are okay on this one. That's not something that I do well. So you've got your pelvis basket. They do that in cartooning a lot. And then you've got your, you know, little rib cage like this. And we know that it's tilting up a little bit. So we can do the inside. Actually, I think this one is less. I'm gonna actually look a little farther into that basket. Boop, boop. And then we can do some, let's say this one's in the front. This one's boop, boop, boop. And then we can use wedges, let's say. Could use wedges over here. And think about like a cartooning way of doing things. Hand little jack, that's okay. So I'm pushing the shoulders up a little bit more. This, and we can think about adding some muscles to that. So let's say we knock that down a whole bunch. And we know that here's our rib cage. So we're gonna do muscle studies of this character. It's a little bicep. You know that there's some of these muscles here. So there's many different ways to study the exact same pose. And then you got your abs. Thousands and thousands of abs. You've got those obliques. Now, this ain't gonna be no Proko. I know every single muscle insertion, blah, blah, blah. The best thing I learned about legs, actually, boop, boop, boop. It's that leg. It's the, okay. I know that we got these big old muscles, quads, that come down like this. And if you just draw, like, this is the low side and this is the higher side of that part of the leg. And then the inside heel is higher than the outside heel. So you can, and then there's stuff on the inside of that. You got some muscles in here you won't see. I won't even draw that outer leg because it's going to make it harder to see. But I know we got some stuff back here. That's like the bone there. And then little bony feet. This is another type. So let's move this over, even though it's not complete. It's not really the point. So when you're doing life drawing, you'll do the like 1 minute gestures where you really just like play around with flow and stuff like that. That's the most fun. It doesn't matter what it looks like. You can look at that goat's mangled head and that's accessible. Like you can tell this goat is looking up like this way. Yeah. Even though it doesn't really look like a goat. Like I'm not even sure, like this could be a dog. This could be a Jack Russell Terrier. We don't know. That's not the problem. And then when we get into people, like sometimes they look like melty pears. That's fine. Like look at her smush face. Like this cheek is dented in, like there's no chin at all, but this is supposed to be like something like this where she's got a scarf and probably it could come around here more. give her eyeball. And then she's grumpy because it's cold. And then she's got her, she's got a bit of a cheek. Like, I could draw the exact same thing now with a lot less lines because I drew so many with the lines. So there's like, you can, I don't want to scan the whole book because it's filthy. But you can see how many pages of this. This goes from November to January. So this is about 2 months of just life sketching on the street. And I try to do at least 2 or 3 pages a day. And this was separate from my fun sketchbook and from my school work. I just try and get as many hours as I could out drawing the street. So some of them have like 10 or 20 people like on a page. How many is this for? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So let's say 10 people per page. It's a 100-page sketchbook. So in 2 months, I drew 1,000 gestures minimum. And that's not including the stuff I did in school on actual like newsprint with like the charcoal and stuff. Like we did it the old-fashioned way, like the old-timey people. That's not including any digital stuff that I was drawing. That's not including any of the cartooning and other classes that I was doing. Just 1,000, so 500 gestures a month for all of my school for 4 years probably. So when people say it's practice, like, we're not kidding. Like, it's not a trick. There's no secret back door. Do a lot of bad drawings. That's the top secret thing that everybody's been telling you, and I'm sorry. So a lot of these 1-minute ones, do some box people. I can talk about this more if you're interested. Let me know what kind of things you want to see. Simplified anatomy, like actually like learning anatomy. I love Bridgman because he just breaks it down to basic shapes. We don't need to know insertions. We don't need to know the iliac crest of the pelvis is connected to the muscles of the trapezius. I don't think that's right. Trapezius is up, nowhere near the pelvis. Doesn't matter. You need to know what shapes they are and how to build them out of simple forms. That is all you need to do. Sometimes you do cartoony, sort of like playing with your little bean. You got your like top bean and your bottom bean like this. You want to bend your bean in different ways so that you can get used to moving the big forms around. You can get into some anatomy drawings. You can spend a lot of time actually just taking your time and really seeing how each of them are built, their shapes. And you can also play with moving the proportions around because you're a cartoonist. So you want to play with like a big rib cage like this, playing around with stuff like that. Or you could do like the olive oil where she's very tall and thin, something like this. There's a lot of different things you could do. So when people are like, oh, what do I do? And I want to learn life drawing and stuff like that. Like there's actually like many, many things you can do. And depending on your goals, you can prioritize different things. If you want to be a fine artist and do really detailed renderings of the face, it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time figuring out all the bones of the foot. Also, as a cartoonist, it doesn't make sense to sit down and make sure you know every bone in the foot. You need to know that there's a heel back here. You need to know there's a bunch of junk going this way and then some toes sticking out at the end. And then that goes up, and then like, that's fine. That's enough. Like, that's all we need to know, right? Even if you're doing cartoon skeleton, that's enough to set yourself up to be able to start drawing it. And then you can add in whatever details are on top of that. The blabbity blobs and the wiggly wigs. So let me know what you think. Thank you if you take the time to ask me a question. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna make a list of all the questions that you guys are asking. I'm gonna make videos that are related to those questions because I want to be here for you. So those of you who are here, tell me what you need and I will provide. So thanks for dropping by. I'm gonna go drink some Neocitrin. Then I'm gonna do some more drawing because it's vacation, baby. That was baby. Wow. See you in the next video. That's what I say. Oh no. Copy image and paste. So that rhymes. Big. I just coughed myself blind. I don't trust my memory of what goats look like. Should we buy a goat? Okay, so everybody comment so that Stylish Rumble can afford to buy a goat.